it's Allie Edwards and welcome back to Pieces of the Past. This is the final prompt in our 7-part series here. The last prompt is Looking Back I See, which I love as a prompt, and the way that I'm going to tackle this one is on the stamp set there's one that just says simply Looking Back I See, and so I'm going to do the same thing that I did on a couple of these other pages where I do a list, right? I'm gonna stamp and looking back I see, and then I'm gonna write a little bit, looking back I see this, looking back I see this, about my past, right? About the different pieces of my past. Some of it's just collected thoughts from this past week of doing this project and looking back and documenting some of the different pieces of my past. I'm excited. I'm excited to dive in and see what I had to say. I've been taking a couple notes on my computer of some things that I might want to say in this, so I think that's gonna come into play here. For the last page, my plan is I looked back through my pictures and I found this particular picture of my brother and sister and I in my backyard in Washington growing up, where the cherry blossoms were snowing. I used to call it, you know, the snowing of the cherry blossoms, and I just love it. So what I've already done is I printed it out. It's 8.5 by 8 1/4, and I already cut this page off, so the top part off. So I'm going to have a flap page here like I've done on some of the other ones that you guys have seen in this series, and I'm just going to stamp and write directly on here, and I think I'm going to do that on both the front and the back. That's my initial thought. I know lots of these other ones, or like on the first one I stamped "We Are" and then had this on the inside. I'm not going to do that, but I might. The only thing I would consider doing is if I feel, I'm not sure, let's see, what am I trying to say? I might want to type this up. That's kind of what I'm thinking a little bit about typing it up. And if you type it up, there's lots of different ways where you could add something in, right? I could even add a second flap here. I could take a second page. There's additional pages in the album. And maybe I'll do this where I cut a second one. Let me just cut that and show you guys what that would look like. Okay, so then I could have 2 pages. I think it's going to depend on how much I actually want to say, right? How many looking back I see prompts do I want, or how much do I have to say really is essentially it. So if I have a lot to say, I could do another one like this, but then I would need something on the back. So I could add additional photos on here. That might work. I could add a patterned paper on the bottom here and use some sort of an embellishment like I've done like on this one. I could stamp something else out again. I could do, pieces of the past repeated. I could do childhood memories or remembering. Any of these stamps on here could also be done there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my computer and I think I'm going to type for a little bit, give myself a little space to see what I can come up in terms of typing up some things. I might set up my journaling so that I could still stamp this on there, so maybe measuring out, how far in do I want my typing to start. I might try to do that so that I could actually stamp on there still. So as you can tell, I've got a few things to think about of how I want to tackle this last prompt, but it is underway. All right, so I went ahead and typed up my journaling here. The first thing that I did was do a test print just so I could see if the stamp was going to fit in the space that I was leaving available. And it did. Obviously, I could have just done text in there and turned the text red, but I still wanted to be able to use the stamps. So what I ended up doing here is I'm going to have 3 separate pages with the writing. So that obviously a lot more writing than I could have fit in if I was handwriting it. So just something to keep in mind. And then for this part here, I'm considering, I did a little test, considering using the looking back stamp and creating a pattern that would be similar to the treatment that I've done on a couple other pages in here. So I'm probably going to end up doing that. I've got it here and then I've got it here too. So kind of thinking about doing that and then potentially placing some embellishment on there. I also have, there's a new tab sticker set that's coming out with the May Stories by the Month kit. That's going to release later this week. There's some cute ones on there, so I'm thinking I might use one of these as a tab that goes along the top. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, is just I'm going in, I'm doing the stamping for my journaling sections. I just used Looking Back I See as the prompt to guide my writing. I'm going to cut those out, get it all adhered into the book. All right, so continuing to go ahead and use that barn door red ink to stamp Looking Back I See onto the pages that I had printed out my journaling. In addition to just using the prompt as a jumping off point, I also wrote a little bit at the end that was just a reflection on this project and what I felt like has been a good thing for me to do, and felt like it was a really good time for me for this particular project. Here's what I wrote in that space. I said, this project came at a really good time for me, a time when I feel a softness towards my parents and my family as I navigate my own parenting challenges, and as I recognize that there's simply no one-size-fits-all roadmap for parenting, quote-unquote, success, whatever that means. I have learned that you can love deeply and still make mistakes regularly. I've learned that you can be holding on way too tight because you want to keep them safe versus a more open communication approach that honors their own individual story. Here's to being open and writing new stories as I move forward in my own journey. So that's just a little bit of the reflective writing that I did in addition to my responses to the Looking Back I See prompt. Again, this has just been a meaningful project for me, and I'm really thankful that I took the time to embark on it. So going ahead and continuing with the process of actually constructing this little album here, I am adding in the full page photo. I love, love, love how that ends up looking. And I love that we can have our photos, you know, whether they're from the past or today, right? Like as you look at this project, you could do this project using, you know, do a project like this using photos from today. So following some of the design formulas that I've set up here. But I love using the photos almost as pattern paper, right? That the photos become the main illustration there. And just those full page photos are so awesome. I just love them, and being able to have then a little bit of play in between and have the words be in between. I just love it. I love it. It makes me really happy, and I loved that I used this photo too. So cutting up my journaling to be able to fit onto those pages is essentially what I'm doing now, again, using an X-Acto knife and cutting directly onto my table. That X-Acto knife is very sharp, and it's cutting really well, and it's just such a good reminder to have new blades. So with these tabs, what I decided to do with them, I think is similar to what I did on the first prompt in this notebook, was I folded over the tabs, and then I'm tucking them in between the page that's originally there and then the journaling that I'm adding on. And because I had two pages, I decided to do two tabs on there. One of them is the darker pink, and that one says Big Love. And then the second one that I'm going to add on in a minute here says Just This. I love these tabs. Like I want tons of these tabs too, especially for things like this where you're working outside of the page protector. It's just such a nice little thing that you can add on there. So again, lots of cutting and pasting with this one, lots of measuring to know what size those pages are. As always, you can simply hand write here too. Again, it's not, you know, if typing isn't the way you want to go, handwriting is absolutely a way to get your story included. Let's see, what else can I tell you guys about this one? Grabbing the second tab, this is going to be the one that says Just This, and then adding that in between the paper that's going to get adhered on the back. I just use a little bit of rolling adhesive for these to add them on. But can't you see, like, I totally want to do this same style of thing again, where I use a couple pages that can get cut that become a place for story or a place for additional photos in between two halves of a larger picture there. So cutting up the journaling, getting that ready, going to adhere that in. A lot of this project, once you have your photos and or story, again, remembering that maybe you don't have the photos, so maybe it's just a big piece of pattern paper that you're using behind there that relates to the feelings that you have from your journaling. Like that would be perfectly fine. I hope for those of you that have been participating in this project in real time, I hope that it's been a good project for you too. You know, maybe there have been pieces that have been hard or challenging as you reflect back on your own life. Just thank you. Thank you for being willing to consider even diving back into these. And as you can tell, just by my writing specifically today, a lot of these kinds of things are really top of mind for me in terms of family and in terms of having older kids, and really taking a lot of time to reflect back on what my growing up looked like and how can that influence the choices that I make as a parent today. That's just a lot of what's very real for me right now, and I think part of why this project has come at a good time for me. So trimming everything off, using the corner rounder, adding on a little chipboard piece. Again, this is from the May Stories by the Month kit that's coming out at the end of next week. Adding that little chipboard piece on there, and then just feeling really thankful for this project and the way that it has come together. Love the opportunity to work in a notebook like this. As always, if you guys have questions, let me know in the comments below.